Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our CEO and Leadership Seminar. My name is Dr. Michelle Cull, and I'm the Associate Dean Engagement for the School of Business at Western Sydney University. Our School of Business is internationally accredited by the prestigious Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, or AACSB, for its excellence in business education. Less than 6% of business schools globally hold this accreditation, and this acknowledges the school's commitment to offer the highest standard of business education for our students. I would like to begin today's seminar by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. I'm joining you today from Dharawal country, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing culture and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. It's great to see so many of you joining us online for this event. Events such as this can provide an enriching learning experience for not just our students, but staff and our industry partners. Our Dean, Professor Amir Mahmood, extends a very warm welcome to all of you. During this webinar, there will be opportunities for you to engage using the Q&A function that you can see at the bottom of your screen. You can add questions at any stage during the webinar, and there is an upvote option to like a question and help raise it to the top of the list. We may address some of the questions as they are asked, while others we will hold until the end of the webinar after the main presentation has taken place. Please note that the event is being recorded, and by participating in the Q&A, you consent to the information shared in this section being collected and used by Western Sydney University for learning purposes. This event, as part of our CEO and Leadership Seminar series, is an initiative of the School of Business designed to encourage and inspire our students, our staff and industry partners as they lead the way in making a better society for us all. The series provides an opportunity to hear from leaders who have made a real difference and to learn more about what leadership looks like in today's challenging business environment. Tonight, we will hear from Joseph Rizk, AM, CEO and Managing Director of Arab Bank Australia, a position he has held for the past 8 years. Prior to this, Joseph held the position of Chief Banking Officer, overseeing the retail, commercial and trade banking operations, as well as its branch network, and being responsible for all revenue generating arms of the bank. Joseph has over 40 years of corporate, commercial and international banking and finance experience, along with extensive experience across the banking spectrum, with the ability to generate positive results in the face of tough market conditions in an increasingly competitive business environment. Prior to joining Arab Bank Australia, Joseph worked at National Australia Bank in a senior executive capacity, leading a series of large business units in New South Wales. Joseph is a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Management. Joseph has also been a Director of the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce since 2007, and from 2014 to 2017 was President of the Westmead Medical Research Foundation. In May 2015, Joseph was nominated the Chairman of the Italian Opera Foundation Association. In 2015, Joseph was also nominated as the Director of the Westmead Millennium Institute for Medical Research, and on the Queen's birthday, he was awarded the Order of Australia in recognition of his extraordinary contribution to the banking sector and community. Joseph has also served on the board of Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Melkite Catholic Apache Corporation, and last year Joseph became a member of the Powerhouse Capital Campaign Committee. On Australia Day this year, Joseph was awarded Member of the Order of Australia Honours for his significant service to the not-for-profit sector and to banking and commerce. We are delighted to have Joseph join us here today to share his leadership journey. Now I would like to hand over to Joseph Rizk, AM. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Michelle. Greatly appreciate that introduction. I've got to look at how I can shorten that CV for the future and that. But first up, Dr. Michelle Cull, Ramonda and Amita, thank you for all your efforts in putting this event together. And I do want to thank the team at Western Sydney University for this invitation to present. Yes, definitely my name is Rizk, R-I-Z-K, not S-K, but, you know, for the last 48 years, it's raised a lot of eyebrows when I'm introduced or I meet people. And they say, are you a banker? You're seriously a banker with that surname? So you can just appreciate the sort of feedback I've gotten over the years and still do today. And I'm actually this month celebrating 48 years in banking. Right, so you might say, well, a bit of a dinosaur. And, you know, the reality is, my view is if you enjoy what you're doing, you really never stop, one way or the other. And for me, the enjoyment has always been the people that I've gotten to know, the client base, the staff that I've worked with, and of course, you know, the different bodies along the way that you work with, such as the university. And I just want to congratulate the university on its great achievement and recognition. It's outstanding. We've had a long association as a bank. We've had a long association with Western Sydney University. So keep up the great work. What keeps me enthusiastic is, as I said, it's the people. It's the satisfaction you get out of making a difference. And I think that should be a criteria in life in general. And it's so critical to have people around you that support also all of your endeavours. And first up, it is critical that the family is involved, right? So one of the key points for me to pass on to people as I meet and I do mentor quite a few young people is that, you know, focus on the family. It's a critical piece, and if family members are around you as you go through your working life, it just gives you a lot more satisfaction. And then the obligations that you have to your fellow workers, right, is a critical piece to keep you connected, right? The right skills that you need to have around you is really about how you engender that development process for people around you and so forth. But I think that's what keeps me enthusiastic. And sometimes the satisfaction that you get from customers, right, as you deal with them, as your team deals with them, it is quite rewarding in itself. So for me, as long as the passion is there, as long as the enthusiasm remains and a sense of achievement and the sense of I suppose making a difference is there, you continue to work through life, and even in retirement, you look at great opportunities to continue to assist the community around you, because it's the community that actually builds you up. It's people around you that actually build you up. Yeah, and if you don't sort of have that support, you really don't. People don't achieve things on their own, right? And I don't care who could tell you that they've done it on their own. Well, there's a lot at fault when people make that claim, right? So to me, the real difference in life is what contribution people around you make. And if they're on the same track as you, it helps a lot. If their thinking is similar, there's got to be diversity of thinking. There's no two ways about it. But if you can merge that thinking and achieve good results, it makes a big difference. If I can start off by saying, life actually, you get a whole array of things that may occur. And I know there's quite a few students and people out there that, start off thinking about what they want to do in life. Yes, they go to uni and they start to focus about their careers, and do change, right? They get off one platform and get onto another platform to take a train in a different direction. And the reality is that you shouldn't fear change, you know, and a lot of people actually do fear change. They see change as a bit of a challenge. And I look at change as being a very, very positive element. It's how you manage change that really is critical. And those that manage change very, very well tend to generate a fair bit of confidence for those around them, right? Yes, times can be very challenging. And I don't need to repeat what you've been hearing for the last couple of years in terms of COVID and the challenges COVID threw at us. But we got through it. And good leaders are not just necessarily good managers, right? Leaders need to be able to manage, but they need to also, you know, create a sense of positiveness, a sense of achieving things, set goals. So people lift their minds, but they also lift their hearts when they attend to the tasks at hand. So I think it's critical for us to be very, very positive at every opportunity, even when the challenges are quite horrendous. And I can explain that by saying, look, if we look back at what happened in March 2020, okay, as COVID rolled over us, right? It's 2 years and a bit since that all happened. But if we think about what the thinking was at that time, right? Everybody thought that unemployment was going to skyrocket. Everyone thought that the equity market was going to take a substantial dive. Everybody thought that the uncertainty was that they could lose their jobs, they could see the values of their homes go down, right? Their property assets and that. But in reality, within a very short period of time, things moved in the opposite direction. Property values went up. We had a fantastic run there with the equity market, right? But there was a fair bit of confidence that came back about jobs and longevity of those jobs. And yes, we fully understand that the government provided some relief there, but it was also the way that we tackled it as a team, as a country. And when the challenges do occur, sometimes we tend to panic, right? When in fact we should be focusing about the opportunities. One of the good things about what I've seen over the decades that I've been a banker, but I've also been a person who's been involved in the community, right? But what I've seen over those is that we do have ups and downs, right? I mean, a lot of you might think that, we've never really had a recession, for a period of about 30 years, this country hasn't had a recession. And that's true to a large extent, right? But we have had recessions. We've had downturns in the last 48 years that I've been a banker, and I've been through 3 of those. And reality, that's not even including COVID, the impact of COVID. But we got through them as a country. We got and people who took advantage of the downturns, when I say took advantage, they focused on the positives. And there are always winners, of course, even in a recession. So I've learned that the people that think in a positive manner and accept change, adapt, are the ones that are really successful, all right? And those that could actually communicate, right? You can have an education, you can do all the right things in terms of a work environment, but it's about that personal skill set of communicating that makes a big difference, right? And you'll find that that's a trait of a lot of good leaders. Their ability to communicate is paramount. So if you've got any concerns about your communication skills, there's a lot of people out there that can support you in that process. And it is important that you develop those skills. I think if we really focus about issues like a work environment, what sort of career we go or get involved in, just make sure you enjoy it, right? Because if you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't be there, right? It's all too short. Life is too short to sort of, live in agony, right? And live in a state of, well, maybe I can do better somewhere else. Well, you need to focus about that, right? And sometimes, as I said, don't fear getting off the platform and moving to another platform and catching a train in a different direction if you're that inclined, right? And, sometimes it's actually opening up to people who you admire, right? And I had a young gentleman in my office this morning, and he called me just to say, look, I'd really like to have a chat with you. And, he quickly realized that my view is always one of assist as much as you can, right? In whatever way you can, right? So I've taken the view that I'm more than happy to help that individual with quarterly link-ups, either by phone or face-to-face to assist in his career direction, right? What I'm really saying is, if you've got people out there that you admire, put your hand up, approach them. And I'll tell you now, in 90% of the cases, people will be more than happy to assist, right? So you've got to show the enthusiasm to be able to approach people who you admire or you feel can assist you. So, take that path. It doesn't hurt. When I started in banking, just to give you an idea, I started in banking in 1974, right? And I remember the reason I went to work in a bank was because one of my friends said to me, look, why don't you get an easy job while you're studying at uni? I said, what are you talking about? He says, go and work in a bank. He said, get an easy job. You'll be able to study at night. So I'll let you in on a secret. I was doing industrial chemistry. I wanted to be an industrial chemist. And I went and I got interviewed at a bank thinking that they were not going to give me a job. But it was recession. It was the period of where a lot of you may know a bit of history, that Gough Whitlam was the Prime Minister at the time. Unemployment was really building up, and it was very hard to get a job. So I did go and apply for a job, right? But I was very open. And I said to the HR personnel that was interviewing me, I said, I want an easy job so I can study at night. And he looked at me and he said, are you serious? Why should we give you an easy job? What are you doing at uni? And I said, I'm doing industrial chemistry. He said, oh, we can't give you a job if you're doing industrial chemistry. So he goes and gets his boss. He looks at me and he says, what are you doing? And I told him, and he says, well, why should we give you an easy job? I said, well, that doesn't mean I won't do a good job, right? So what I'm saying to you is just be honest, be direct, and you'll be surprised, right? So I started in banking. They hired me, put me on a graduate training program, accelerated training program. And I quickly learnt that industrial chemistry, working behind a lab bench, was really not going to be for me. So I started to study finance, a little bit more about, what banking was all about. And NAB really looked after me, right? So I actually enjoyed it, right? So you can see how careers paths can change. Right, so be open-minded to a lot of that, because the opportunities are enormous out there. All right, and we know perfectly well another facet to what's happened over The recent decades has been the massive change in technology, right? Just imagine if we didn't have the technology today to have been able to deal with COVID, right? The fact that we are now connecting on a virtual basis tonight just tells you that, how broad our reach can be, even during lockdown, right? So technology has been a major player. And if you think technology has changed us, you wait and see what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm sure you cover a lot of that at uni. But every business out there is focusing about what is it that they need to do when it comes to technology, adapting and improving. So this is the rate of change that's occurring out there, right? I mean, think about, for those that are say in their 30s can recall that used to walk around with a wallet full of cash. Well, I mean, not many people carry cash these days. So bank branches are becoming more or less obsolete, right? So you can see what technology is doing to industry, right? And again, what I'm really saying is don't fear change, even what change technology brings on board, but you've got to be cautious. You've got to be very, very mindful, cyber security and all the other aspects. Cryptocurrency, the way the regulators are currently working throughout the globe to try and see how they can regulate and police cryptocurrencies, right? Something that's occurring out there at the moment at a rapid rate is change that technology is bringing. Do you all recall when Uber came into Australia? Right? Uber challenged the taxi industry enormously, and that's happened within the last 10 years. And when Uber came into this country, it was basically illegal. In every state and territory, it was illegal. But what did the government have to do eventually? They had to accept it. They regulated accordingly, and the industry had to adjust. The taxi industry, the method of transport. So quickly, technology drives change. And even with cryptocurrencies, that will drive more change, for instance. The way we do things is change. So what I'm really, you notice the word change is pretty much a focus. So you've really got to be up to speed with what is changing around you and look at the positives that change can bring and look at the opportunities that you can sort of maximize, even in your own industries, in your own workplace. There's a lot of issues in terms of leadership, right? It is so important that as leaders or any work environment that where you've got ownership for other people around you in terms of their work and their direction, make sure that you do know how to delegate. If delegation is appropriate, you've got to delegate. You have to have an element of trust. You've got to trust people. And the majority of people are people that you can trust, right? You'll learn that you actually burden people with a lot more work because you trust them, because you feel that they've got the capacity. Well, that's part and parcel of the process. You do learn to depend on people that are achievers. Make sure you set your goals, all right? And clearly articulate those goals, even if you write them down and visit them on a regular basis, so you know what journey you want to stay on, or should you change, right? So it's the those around you, always try and reward them accordingly, and reward has different I suppose settings. You can look at rewarding people even with your kind words, your acknowledgement, right? But if they're working for you, make sure you look at a career path for them. set direction for them as well and help them achieve that direction if that's what they'd like to do. Right. So this is, really important in leadership, but having a goal, right? One other important thing in a work environment is always create teamwork. Teamwork is really what makes the difference, right? When someone is not well or can't provide the support, how the team rallies again around that individual is critical, right? Because that person then becomes more or less even more a team player going forward when they overcome the adversity that they may be challenged with. But I think it's so important that we try to all fly in sequence, if you want to call it, right? It's important that we do realise that everyone goes through change. Everyone goes through some adversity at times, and that's the time when a team really pulls together. Right, makes all the difference. Try to be active in the community. Right. When I say active in the community, be involved in some of the great opportunities out there to put some effort into helping others. Right. There's a lot of social clubs out there. It doesn't hurt to connect with some of these clubs, for instance. Right. I've learned over the years that going to those sort of events, you learn a lot of people, right? But you also get some personal satisfaction out of helping people, right? And which is helping the community. And, as Michelle informed you that, we've been involved with medical research, we've been involved within the arts, music and so forth. And the reason we do that is primarily to help youth. That's always been my focus. It's about helping youth through all those areas. And I've got a very, very focused team at the Yarra Bank who do extremely great work in all of those areas, right? So our brand is a trusted brand because of what we do in terms of the community, right? And it is important for that to be almost a team effort, right? I've sat on the boards and I sit on the boards, some of those chambers, the Lebanese Chamber of Commerce had great strengths and does still have great strengths because of their social approach. But it's about the members of the board, the members of the team, right, that makes a difference. And it's the same thing with the Yarra Bank. We've got a dedicated staff who focus about meeting the needs of our clients. They go the extra mile if it needs to be done. And I assure you that, for me, the satisfaction is when clients say, look, your people are fantastic, right? And that's the positive elements that come back, from time to time. And it is important, a bank like us is not a big bank like the big major four, but boy, do we know how to punch, right? And I think that's what makes the difference. Every one of our clients has a banker to talk to. And I assure you that we do not believe in terms of back office, where you ring up and you've got to talk to different people every time. You see, that personal touch makes all the difference in life. And at every point in terms of your own personal activities, put that personal touch in there. And it really does make a difference, and it brightens up everybody that's involved in discussions with you, and they respect you a great deal more. Look, I'm not quite sure how far we've got and what time, but I'd prefer. I can talk to you about regulators. I can talk to you about cryptocurrencies. I can talk to you about some of the things that are occurring in terms of technology and change and that. And it's all change. But I think a Q&A is usually the best way to go forward, because you get a lot of people who are eager to ask questions, and I'm happy to take questions. I think, Michelle, I've covered my talking time, haven't I?
Yes, still have some longer time if you wanted to, but I think we might go to some Q&A.
Yes.
But it's just been so interesting to hear your journey so far, Joe, and some great insights around, setting goals, adapting to change, overcoming adversity, teamwork. So many things to take away. I've been taking some notes myself. But we do have some questions already in the Q&A, so we might start with those, and I might ask our participants to continue to put their questions there. Joe, what I will do, I'll read them out one by one and allow you to then answer them. So the first question is from James here, and I'll just read the questions, a few sub-questions. But what was some of the differences you found from moving from NAB to Arab Bank? Mm-hmm. What do you miss from NAB? What do you feel Arab Bank offers over the Big Four? And do you believe that this should be the way forward? And another question related, the bank branch manager used to be among the high status for the community. Would you like to see a return of the branch manager being part of the community?
Some really good questions there. Okay, look, I left NAB. I actually sadly left NAB, right? I mean, it's a comfort zone that I had, after nearly 32 years at NAB, right? So you say to yourself, okay, maybe the nursery period is over, right? But I actually enjoyed my career at NAB enormously, and I thank NAB for the great support that I had over those years. The variety of work was excellent. My positions, if I said to you, there was never a dull moment. And a lot of it was because of the great teamwork. I actually put some of their biggest banking centres together, right? I managed NAB House, for instance, up the road here. I'm in the Stock Exchange building. I suppose for 42 years of my career in banking, out of the 48, I've worked in a radius of about 400 metres of where I am now, right? So you can appreciate that you do what's done. Moving to the Arab Bank, I knew the Arab Bank when it first came to Australia, and that was in 1986, just after licenses were approved for foreign banks and so forth. So I got to know them over a period of time. The transition to the Arab Bank was not that difficult after I started, because I quickly realised that it's a bank where the number of people, you felt like as if you were in a family, right? When you're working with people, 10, 12 hours a day, right? And you actually quickly learn that, you have a different relationship with the broader bank, if you want to call it. And there was a lot more socialising, right? When I say socialising, evening events, weekends were packed with weddings, customers, staff. You had a lot of christenings, birthdays. So it never really, it doesn't stop. I mean, if I can say to you, Michelle, and to the listeners, that, out of a normal week, I'd probably have five nights that there's something going on, right, of an evening. And it hasn't sort of, slowed me down. In fact, it's kept my enthusiasm there, right? The other part of the question was, would you like to see where managers have a better relationship with their clients? When I joined the National, and I worked at branches, I can tell you now that the managers were almost part of families. They were very close. They were highly regarded, highly respected community members. They're almost in the same sort of level as doctors, right? In terms of what's name say, you can understand I suppose the concern people have got today that doesn't exist anymore, right? And a lot of that relates to the fact that there's substantial turnover of staff. Longevity of people in banks is not there to the same degree as it used to be, right? Banking was a career where people would stay in banking. So managers became part of the families who they looked after as well, right? And I could remember it quite well from the bankers that I used to work with. Well, let me tell you this, at the Arab Bank, it's still the same, right? My managers, when I say my managers, the team that's around me, from the senior executive that looks after the network, and some of the executives that I've got here that have dealings with customers, they get invited. They are involved with a lot of things that I've just outlined to you that early in my career I saw other bank managers involved in, right? Yes, I totally agree that people that are close to people, when I say close to them, they understand it, they can actually look at how they benefit the client, right? And you'd be surprised how many people are actually, create lifelong friendships, which I used to see. And I still connect from time to time with some of my ex-colleagues at NAB, right, on an annual basis and so forth. And, and we do. I mean, when you get older like I do, you start to reminisce some of those good old days. And when I tell them the good old days are still happening today, they go, wow, so yeah. Sorry, that's been a long answer to that question, those questions.
No, a really good answer. And I suppose you were talking about technology earlier as well. So what you're saying is, although we've got all these changes in technology, one thing that remains the same is those relationships that you form with people.
Very true. Very true.
And I might actually go to a question here from Erdl, which relates a little bit to what you were just talking about. Erdl says, thanks, Joseph. What are some of the social governance strategies in context of business ethics of Arab Bank with their local community and customers?
Oh, look, I think you've got to be aware of some of the cultural differences of your client base. But, as a bank, we offer the same services, the traditional services of the retail banks. We don't have any Islamic products. We don't really go out there, but we've got quite a lot of people from all different sectors of the community that bank with us. Just to give you an idea, we're a trusted bank in the sense that 80% of our depositors are non-Arabic, for instance. A lot of people don't understand that. But our client base, a high net worth individual who like that private element of relationship, right? That attention, the fact that they can talk to a banker, right? So that's across all sectors in our community. Be they people from Islamic background, be they people from the Anglo-Saxon background. We've got an enormous variety of different, the diversity is quite strong.
Thank you, Joseph. We might move on we've got two more questions, and I just want to remind people to, I think there's more coming through now, which is great. I'll go to a question here from Sue Burton, who is a professor with Western Sydney University. Sue says, thank you for your very interesting talk. Can you say what has been the best piece of advice you have been given and why?
Well, advice has always been forthcoming, right? I can remember one individual senior banker when I first started used to say to me, try to listen a lot more. right? And it's all in your listening. It's all just focus on listening to people and listening to what their concerns are, and listening is really paramount, right? And you can structure things all around that, right? In terms of your reply, in terms of the way that you assist people, because sometimes when we're listening to people, we actually tune in to a solution mode a lot quicker than you should. You know, I'm getting at, so, you know, that was one of the best, I suppose, one of the early advices that I've got. And I do tend to, as an individual, tend to go into solution mode. You know, and I suppose most people do, right? But, you know, and I suppose as you get older, you start to think, you know, you know the answer. So do you actually say, do this and do that? Or do you say to someone, what do you think? Right? So that's paramount today, is to see, because most people that come to you with questions, they actually probably have an idea what the solution is, or what approach they should be taking.
That really is some good advice, and I think I should probably take that on board myself, I think. I've got 3 more questions. The next one is about people being positive in the workplace. And the comment here is, I see people with their family pictures on their work desk and computer screens these days. Is that what everyone should follow, or something else to get the enthusiasm to be positive all the time?
Yeah, look, I think it's what you personally feel. There's nothing wrong in sharing, right? A lot of people are reserved, right? You notice when you go to a gathering, when you just walk in, let's say for a corporate lunch or a corporate dinner or whatever it is, and you're sitting at a table where you don't know the people, for instance, right? And once you start the conversation, once you find out what the common grounds are, you really open up. So having those images on your screen actually opens up and makes people a little bit more less cautious about opening up, right? So yes, definitely, you know, it's like anything else. If you look at things in a positive manner, when you're talking to people, just be open, just come out and sometimes saying, you know, making remarks that you probably feel don't fit into the conversation, it actually opens up the conversation, right? But you've got to pick the situation too, right? Yeah, definitely. Let's put more colour in life.
Sounds great, Joe. I'm going to share something here from Rita, who you know, Joe.
Yes.
Rita has said that she wanted to share with the audience that she is a WSU alum and that she commenced her career with Arab Bank and spent 8 years working closely with you, Joe. And she says that she can certainly attest to the benefits of mentorship from people who you trust and from good leaders. And she's asked a question for you, and she said if time permits, which it does, what should students look for when seeking out a good leader?
Thank you, Rita, and it's good to hear from you, Rita. I thought I answered all of that before you left us. No, look, I think the reality is that, you know, Rita did a fabulous job when she was with us. She was in the marketing team. I hope I'm not giving away too much, Rita, but her open approach, her can-do approach, right? Nothing was a challenge in the sense that, you know, it was too hard. And it's that attitude, right? So I think, you know, an approach always is go up to your manager, go up to your leader and say, look, I can do more, or I'd like another challenge, or I'd like to do a little bit more. And look, most leaders will take that on board, right? It's the people that don't step up. It's the people that don't ask questions about what else can they do, right? Are the ones that just want to sort of, just do the tasks allocated and so forth. And COVID actually showed that up, right? Okay, people that are working from home, right, did their work, and it was more than appropriate, right? In most cases, most people did the right thing. But what stuck out was those that said, look, I can do more. Working from home has cut out a fair bit of the transport, has cut out this and cut out that, and I've got more flexibility to do more. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a lot of positives that have come out of COVID, right? There's a lot of positives. I tell people, we've gone through this massive shutdown, if you want to call it, and yeah, but what are the positives? And the positives have been actually the way that we've interacted with our family, right? We'll look back at these 2 years and say, wow, they were a great learning. And for the older people in our community who tend to feel they can manage these sort of lockdowns or this pressure with COVID, but always remember that youth have lost a couple of years, right? And that has been the challenge, right? That has been really hard. I mean, just imagine if I look back when I was, under 20 years of age, and I've lost 2 years, that's 10% of my life at that point. You see what I'm getting at? And really, I can understand the hurt factor that a lot of young people suffered because they weren't seeing their friends to the same degree. They were communicating, but they weren't out there, nightclubs and social gatherings and that sort of thing. See, I even missed that to a large degree. I'm joking. Okay.
I thought you might have been serious then. But I'm sure we all have missed that social side and getting out and meeting people and networking and things like that. Right. Look, we've got two more questions that I'll ask, and then yes. I think we might be out of time. One question's from Krishan asking if you have a mentor, and if you do, how have they helped you to get to where you are today and achieve the things that you've achieved to date?
Don't ever think that age stops you from approaching people who you admire, right? Always focus about approaching people. And nowhere at any time in life do you get to a point where you say, I stopped learning. Because if you ever say, I know it all, you're going to surprise yourself and find out that you don't know it all, right? And mentors are actually not necessarily people older than you, right? You have some fabulous, vibrant, young people that really have the capacity to provide some insight, right? And we all should learn, not just necessarily of people who are older than us or from our managers in that, but look at your colleagues. I mean, look at the students that may be sharing their thoughts with other students. They develop relationships. That's like a mentor relationship, right? And I assure you that for me, life is one of listening to the skills, right? If we think about, I'm not saying that everyone at that age or young age has got the skill sets. What I'm saying to you, there's a lot of people out there that actually develop some fabulous skills, right? And have clarity of mind. Because as you get older, you get set in your in how you look at things and that sort of thing. And what actually drives change in any environment is the contribution that young people can make, right? And sometimes it's the radical thinking, right? that really actually keeps people motivated. You know, or how do you deal with that radical thinking? How do you deal with that that skill set? Because you need to actually free it in a lot of ways. So mentoring is not necessarily just people older than yourself and somebody that you can look up to, someone who's a lot younger than yourself quite easily.
That's a really good point, and a new way of looking at mentorship as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a little bit about having maybe a radical way of looking at things. I might just ask you to talk about the environment. We've got a question here from Ira, and I think there are a lot of young people who are very concerned about our environment.
Sure.
And have, you know, maybe different ways of looking at things to what has happened in the past. So the question here relates to how the executive at Arab Bank are considering the environment, and how, what is the bank doing to place more emphasis on the environment?
Sure. Look, I think the Arab Bank is in tune with the industry as a whole, right? There is a need for a focus in terms of how do we we move away from the carbon issues, right? You know, the pollution that's been going on for quite some time. But you've also got to take into consideration the lives that have to keep living, right? So there is a structured approach to anything of this nature, right? Sometimes we want to see things change overnight. That's just the radical approach that we all take, right? We'd love to be able to sort of say, look, you know, it's carbon free tomorrow. But we have to also be realistic. You know, you've got massive third world country issues, right? And they are the biggest polluters to a large extent, as well as some of the other economies of this world and that sort of thing. But a transitional period is really fundamental, and it's got to be done. There are certain things that we can do quickly. At bank level, you'll notice that quite a lot of the banks have really said we're not going to lend to certain industries anymore, right? Well, we're not in those sectors anyway as the Arab Bank, right? In Australia, and I'm sure that our parent, who's really got a global presence, they're throughout the world, you know, and they're a large bank, large organisation. Arab Bank PLC, publicly listed company, is substantial, and the transition process is pretty well understood, right? So yes, you know, we've got to really understand what the environment and the impact of the environment is on our client base, and you know, and what business we continue to do has got to be relative to the changing world in that regard.
Well, I think we're almost out of time now. We've got a couple of minutes left, so we might have to wrap it up. There were a couple of other questions there, and I'll inform you of those later.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'm more than happy to make contact with those parties in that.
Excellent. Well, look, it's been so good hearing from you tonight, and I'm sure everybody here has really enjoyed listening to your words of wisdom. And I'd like to please ask everyone to give you a virtual round of applause. I know you can't see everybody there, but I'm sure that they're all there giving you a big round of applause for your presentation today.
Thank you, everyone, and stay positive.
Yes.
Well done.
Look, I really just want to thank you again, Joe, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today, and also to our participants. And I'd like to acknowledge Ramonda and Amita and the work that they do behind the scenes, because that work is what makes these events happen. They wouldn't be able to happen without them. So thank you, Ramonda and Amita.
Definitely, Michelle. Thank you, and thank you to them both. And we'll stay in touch.
Yes, definitely. And thank you to everybody for attending the CEO and Leadership Seminar Series hosted by our School of Business.
Thanks,
Please
everyone.
stay tuned. Yes, there's many instalments to come throughout the year, so feel free to join us for our future seminars. And if you'd like to reach the team at Western Sydney University, or you have any other comments about tonight that you'd like to raise with us, please email us at business.engagements@westernsydney.edu.au, and we have the details there in the chat. And we will be in contact with a recording, making that available to everybody who was here tonight. And that concludes our webinar for this evening.
Happy Easter to you all.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Bye-bye.
See you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.